I want to talk about the Steve Urkel effect. One of my favorite television shows of the 90s was Family Matters. And it evolved around a Chicago police officer by the name of Laura Winslow and his family. And having to deal with their pesky but lovable neighbor, Steve Urkel. Now, Steve Urkel was a very intelligent, quirky young man. He was tall, he was lanky, he had the glasses with the little, I call it the little suspenders. He wore a button-up shirt with jeans, flooded with his loafers and socks and his suspenders. And he had the hugest crush on Laura Winslow, Carl and Harriet Winslow's middle daughter. Laura Winslow, very beautiful, very smart, very popular, very fashion forward, and Steve fell in love with Laura. The problem is Laura did not look at Steve in the same way. Laura just looked at Steve as a pesky, annoying neighbor who was clumsy. When he laughed, he snot. He had a very nasally voice. He was not anything that was worth looking at. Steve, however, thought that Laura was the most beautiful woman in the world, young woman. And Steve would go out of his way to try to impress her, even at the expense of getting his feelings hurt and being embarrassed by Laura and her friends. Steve just kept going and going and going and going. And there were a couple of times where Steve saved Laura. There was an episode where Laura's boyfriend, he was very popular, very attractive, in high school, started a rumor that he slept with Laura. And everyone started making fun of Laura. And Steve dove in and found out that the guy was lying and made him tell Laura that he was lying. And Laura was devastated, hurt. And while she appreciated Steve for what he did, it wasn't enough. Laura hosted a party at a rooftop, a teenage party at the rooftop. And the party was getting dull and people was about to leave. And Steve came through with the iconic Urkel dance. Do it. Do it. Everybody do the Urkel dance. And not only was it popular on the show, hell, it was popular in the neighborhood now. Steve saved Laura, and it was still not enough. So Steve said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to transform myself into a suave, handsome, groovy man. Because looking at the type of young men that Laura was attracted to, that's what Steve acquiesced to. And he turned himself into Stefan Urquelle. Remember, Steve is an extremely intelligent young man and quite the chemist. And he turned himself into Stefan Urquelle. And Laura fell in love, not realizing that was Steve. And Steve was trying to show her they were one and the same. Of course, the potion did not last, and he was back to his quirky, bonkers way. And there was one episode in particular where Laura found out that Steve was turning himself into Stefan Urquelle for her. And they were at a party, and she said, no, you have to turn yourself into Stefan Urquelle. And Steve said, there is no guarantee that this potion is going to last as long as you want it to last. But he did it anyway. And when he slowly started to turn back into Steve, Laura got angry and said, no, 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 you have to be Stefan Urquelle. And he said, Laura, don't you see? The same person. And she said, no, I fell in love with Stefan Urquelle and he left me and broke my heart. You know why I say that a lot of these guys I hear online suffer from the Steve Urkel effect? Is because they have gone out of their way to impress a woman that did not like them, that used them for what they can use them for and discard them like garbage. They were a transaction. They were good looking. They may have given good dick. Whatever it was, that man was of usage for. And once his usage was done, once his turn was over, he was thrown out like garbage. And these men are angry that everything they did, disrespected, embarrassed by this woman that they're chasing after, it meant nothing, because she didn't like him for him. She liked him for what he can do for her. Steve Urkel is the classic case of an anxious attached person. Everything he did was for the benefit and for the love and for the satisfaction of Laura. And whenever Laura embarrassed him, ignored him, didn't take him seriously, Steve gave in more. He was more annoying. He was more pesky. He was thinking about more ways to impress her, because his whole existence, his worth, was attached to how she felt about him. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of men online really have an anxious attachment style. Lead with your wallet, right? All of these dating coach of how to get with the best women. Everything is predicated around what the woman thinks. Your worth is predicated to how that woman thinks. And when you don't get the desired results, you become bitter, you become jaded, and now every other woman that comes into your life has to pay for the sins of the one that drove you crazy. That's what always happens. I don't think that these men are crucifying all women. They are grieving over the effort they put in that yield no results. If we can take it to accounting for just a second. Accounting 101. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Let me say it again. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Assets is what you own. Liabilities are what you owe, and your equity is what you get in return. You understand? A lot of men gave up everything, poured into everything, trying to get a desired result. And when you have more liabilities than you have assets, your owner's equity, that net worth, it starts to go down. It's very hard to reconcile the balance sheet when everything is out of balance. It's very hard to reconcile with your mental and your emotional, even your spiritual sense. It's hard to reconcile that, knowing that you gave your all, your love, your vulnerability, and your trust to someone who wouldn't piss on fire to put you out. So now we have a bunch of jaded Steve Urkels out here who, at the end of the day, could have gotten a whole lot more if they would have walked away from that bitch who didn't give a fuck about them. So now all the women have to pay for the transgressions of that one or that group, because men meet numbers of women in their lifetime. And in between Laura Winslow, there was Myra Millhouse. Oh yes, Myra Millhouse. Because this is the turning point. Myra Millhouse, which I'm going to do a separate commentary on the Myra Millhouse effect and the Laura Winslow effect. It's going to get real interesting. Myra Millhouse is that woman who accepts you for who you are. Not rushing you, not forcing you. She loves you for who you are. She fucked with you the long way. Myra, beautiful, quirky, and super intelligent, just like Steve. And she wasn't popular, not because she wasn't good looking. She wasn't popular because, like Steve, she was a nerd. And her and Steve finished each other's sentences, and they were in sync. Steve's heart started to beat for real, reciprocal connection. Come on, fellas. After doing all that rigmarole, God sends you an angel, don't he? Won't he do it? Send you an angel. Send you a motherfucking diamond. Send one to you. She checks on you. She don't ask you for your money. She don't embarrass you in front of nobody. She genuinely fuck with you. But because you so used to auditioning and chasing after motherfuckers who don't want you, you overlook this gem. You overlook it. Because when it was time to get real serious with Myra, Steve pulled back. Because his heart was still with fucking Laura. Y'all will get the package at the right fucking address. And you will still fumble it. You'll open up the package. It looks good. It looks nice. You can roll with it. But your heart is still tied to that dusty ass toy in that fucking chest. Y'all will get a good woman. But your heart is still attached to that one who don't fuck with you like that. And you know what that did to Myra? Myra is an example of a secure attachment. Myra saw it. Myra even got into it with Laura a couple of times and called Laura out and said, I know exactly what you're doing. You don't love him. I do. Leave him alone. Laura couldn't do that because Laura didn't like that her asset, right, Steve, was now paying attention to someone else. See, an asset plus an asset elevates the owner's equity, doesn't it? Because you don't owe nobody nothing. You're pouring into each other and you getting a good ROI. ROI means return on investment. But if your heart is still down with that dusty bitch, it doesn't matter what good woman come your way, you still want your heart with that dusty bitch. And fellas, y'all got to keep the shit real with yourself. A lot of y'all have done that. And now, not only are you grieving for the auditions you had to put up with to get this hoe, now you grieving the one that got away. Because after a while, Myra said, I love you, Steve, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Because I already see that I will always be second to her, and I refuse to do so. So yet again, y'all are projecting your lack of self-esteem. You are projecting your regrets and not choosing wisely. And you're grieving that gem, that package that got away. All I'm seeing online with these super panels and whatnot is the Steve Urkel effect of hurt men grieving over all of this auditioning they have to do, did not get a good return on their investment, and grieving the one that they should have been with that they fumbled. And fellas, until y'all get real with yourselves and develop that emotional intelligence and say, I fucked up, let me make it right going forward, y'all gonna always regress and not evolve. And it's going to be more hurt men. And you cannot bully and shame women into dealing with y'all, because at the end of the day, women are not your project. See, Steve missed it. Laura was not your project. It was not your responsibility to morph into somebody to satisfy and please her. Because at the end of the day, you know what happened to Steve? Steve grew into Stefan Urquelle. If only Laura would have appreciated him for who he was and not what she can get out of him, she still would have had the same fucking man, just at a later time. Now you want to fall in love with him when he slowly matured, slowly got out the quirky phase. Now you want to appreciate him. But before, you used him for that. A lot of y'all are dealing with the Steve Urkel effect. It's sad. It's very sad, but this is what it is. A lot of y'all are dealing with your internal struggles of who you really are and who you show up in the world. There's no such thing as game. Be who who you are. That's the lesson for you fellas. Be who you are. If you're an asshole, that's just who you are. If you're a lover boy, that's who you are. But all this trying to morph and contort and change into someone that you're not to get a woman's approval, right? What does that do to you in the end run? Because when your turn is up, she's going to deal with somebody else. And now the next woman that comes in that's actually genuine, now she got to pay for the transgressions for the woman that broke your heart. That is the Steve Urkel effect.